Talking with a client at a luxury brand on Chicago's East Oak Street recently. He told me that when he moved to Chicago about 10 years ago, he was so struck by Chicago is such a beautiful city with bad weather and terrible politics. He said, but then he observed that in springtime, Chicago literally blooms into something completely different. We had our mayoral election here this week in Chicago, and it was a choice between two bad choices. There's a difference between freedom of choice and having a choice. In one, there's a multitude of possibilities, and in the other, there's just the illusion of freedom and no choice. Welcome to Conservative Coffee Hour. I'm Stanley Smith. This week we had our mayoral election here in Chicago between Brandon Johnson and Paul Vallis. Paul Vallis had the most votes in the primary, but apparently Mr. Johnson benefited from the consolidation of all the other people who didn't vote for Paul Vallis. So was that really a choice or a reaction? And what did we get? Did we really get who we wanted, or simply the person we wanted less, more than the person we didn't want? Our pundits, namely Larry on the Saturday call, well, he's really going to clobber us over this one. So be prepared because we all failed, and Larry's going to tell us exactly how we all failed. We failed to out Democrat the Democrats. We failed to get the vote out. We failed to ballot harvest. And we failed to collect mail-in ballots. I appreciate all that, but of course, this is a one-party system here in Chicago. So the GOP didn't really come out and officially endorse Mr. Vallis. Also, the idea of, as a conservative, whatever that might be here in Chicago, it seems to be that we're increasingly identified as and defined as how we can out-Democrat the Democrats by the ballot harvesting, canvassing, and getting the vote out. The conservative is, in fact, it's a different animal, literally and figuratively. And in the process, we're all left feeling cheated and underrepresented. And then we all get angry and scream at each other. We're really, really good at that. And naturally, we all go into our fight, flight, or shutdown mode. Back to the Chicago is a beautiful city narrative with the bad weather and terrible politics. I guess the challenge for us is how can we see springtime in all of this, especially when we layer in the fight, flight, and shutdown response. So, being very angry, leaving the state, or just retreating into our every man for himself mode. It's kind of hard to break out of that and see things differently. It's a heavy lift. In my polling place, people made the remark about how this election was about communism and how we didn't want to live in communism. And the majority of people in my ward downtown in the 42nd ward did in fact vote for Mr. Vallis. And the people voting for Mr. Johnson, well, from my observation, they seem to be Black people, Asian people, and gay people. The comments about communism stem from the remarks that Mr. Johnson made about how, if elected, he's going to abolish white supremacy rule here in Chicago and provide equity for Black people. It's highly problematic and very, very divisive. But if you take a long view of that, like you might have to back up really, really far. Maybe you need to back up like to Indiana to get a long view perspective of all this. But if you do that, you could see what Mr. Johnson is talking about differently. That in fact you could see that he's talking about us from his perspective. I recently attended the Greater North Michigan Avenue meeting, their annual meeting, and it was all very good. It was about them doing the best they can in difficult circumstances. And but at the end, I was really disappointed when it seemed to be they were just paraded out the same old tired leadership people. And I was like, wow. I can't believe these people are still around. It's the same old, same old. It's the good old boy network of tit for tat. And I'll do you a favor if you do me a favor. And let's just make sure we keep in the process, let's just keep everybody out of the picture because then there's more for us. And I was like, wow, this is really, this is really disappointing. And in that model, there's simply no room for anybody else or new ideas or new innovations or just simply new opportunities for up and coming people. And in the process, we just continue the cycle of the my way or the highway mentality. So Mayor Johnson, he has an opportunity. He says he wants to break that cycle and end that rule, but is he really going to break the cycle or just replace it with a new good old boys network of another color? And the term color, what does that really mean? Is it figurative or is it a reality? Because I believe it's probably figurative because it's term color is really just a euphemism for power and control. If Mayor Johnson can break the cycle, then we can all be part of that because in fact we've all been victims of the cycle of power and control, the abuse of all that. And Mr. Johnson has the opportunity to break that cycle if he can take the long view and see it as including all of us. It might be very, very hard for us to see that, to see how we've been a victim or been a victim of abuse here in Chicago, but it's been going on for a long, long time. Chicago is a beautiful city with bad weather and terrible politics, and we're all waiting for springtime, no matter what color you might be. If you would like to join us at Conservative Coffee Hour is every Saturday at 10 a.m. Central Time on Zoom. I will include my email in the description of this video. I'll be happy to send you an invitation, and I look forward to seeing you very, very soon.